everyone, Ace of Clay here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another sculpting video. If you're new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture, and in today's video I'm personifying anxiety. So this video is following up last week's video where I personified depression and I made Depremere. Today you get to meet Angor. Angor is another wanderer from the Mutant Universe. If you're not familiar with my Mutant Universe, it is a series of characters that I've been developing over the last year, and this character that you're going to meet today is part of it. So Angor is another wanderer character. He's not a mutant, he's not a guide, he's a completely separate category of creatures from the Mutant Universe. I will be going into his entire backstory, lore, and symbolism throughout this entire video, so make sure you watch the whole thing so you don't miss any details. And then before we get started, there are only a couple more weeks that you can see the Ice Cream Man and the photographer in person at MiPops Comics and Collectibles in Shelby Township, Michigan. Mention this being the reason for your visit and you will receive a free Ice Cream Man trading card. So again, they're only there for a couple more weeks through the end of July, so if you're in the area, be sure to stop by. And thank you so much for all the positive reception on the Mutant Universe trading cards. I believe at the time of recording this, there are only 12 packs left. Now, long story short, I actually had to order more. They sold out completely last week Saturday, and I ended up overselling them. I thought I had more than I actually did, so I did order a couple extra, but after this, once these 12 packs are gone, they are gone forever. I will not be restocking Series 1. So make sure you go to aceofclay.com or click the link in the description box below if you want to grab a pack. And if you missed out on this round of trading cards, don't worry, Series 2 is coming very, very soon. It's going to be even better than Series 1, and I can't wait to show you. I'm working on them right now. And now, without further ado, let's meet Angor. Alright, let's get started. I've got my aluminum wire here, and I'm going to start shaping out Angor's base and body structure. I want him to be this very skinny S shape. And then I'm also going to attach his arms with some more wire. And as always, all the materials and tools that you see me use in this video are listed in the description box below, along with my affiliate links if you want to purchase anything. Now I'm just bulking out the base with some aluminum foil, and then we're going to start covering that in ultralight. We're going to give him a nice solid underlying structure to add our final layer of clay to. Just working my way up here, and then I'm just going to bulk out his torso really quick. And just like that, he's ready for the oven. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time to start covering him in clay. I'm using Super Sculpted Original, and I got these thin, even sheets by rolling it through my pasta maker on the thickest setting. Just adding this over all of him. Want to get that whole body covered. Add some Bacon Bond to my wire before I add some clay there, so it sticks better. And just get everything nice and covered and smooth. And once all my clay is on, I want to roll out some snakes of clay to create a nice texture at the bottom here. And originally I wanted him to be wearing robes, but this ends up turning into him coming out of the ground. You'll see what I mean later. And then I got this nice little cheap clock from the craft store that I'm going to add to him at some point. But first, let's add this stone texture. I'm trying to create, again, the texture of the ground, and I end up not going with this, and I end up using my medium ball stylus to drag some lines and different textures on it instead. But before we go any further, let's add some more snakes of clay. And then keep doing this, even though this is what we end up with. So I end up covering the whole base with this texture instead of the aluminum foil impressions. The Wanderers are a group of creatures who roam the mutant universe with no destination. They are not mutants, they are not guides, and contrary to popular belief, they are not dangerous. Today we meet Angor, the second Wanderer. Angor was born from the Earth in the mutant dimension, brought to life by the suffering of humans, specifically the illness of anxiety that plagues the human realm. He is a frail creature that is hunched over holding his arms around his chest. He is extremely stiff and moves in slow, cracking motions. And once I've got his arms positioned, I'm going to start working on his hands. To make these, I'm using Cos clay because it stays flexible after you bake it. And I'm really liking making hands this way where I just attach the fingers separately. And I think that's what I'm going to do from now on. I like it a lot better than the other method that I've been doing for 3 years. But yeah, let's blend those fingers in and get them good to go. Alright, now back to that clock from earlier. I want to have it attached to a very big chain, and since I don't have any chain that's the size I want, I'm going to make it myself using my armature wire. Just going to bend it into individual chain links, get it the length that I want, use my pliers, use my good pliers for this because those little jewelry ones weren't really cutting it. Hello, carpal tunnel. And there we go, homemade chain link. Now I'm just going to set this aside and we're going to start mixing up some epoxy sculpt to modify the clock face. But before I do that, I have to take the cover off and dirty up that face so it's not nice and white. It's got to look very dingy, dirty, very old, like it's been sitting in a landfill for years. This was fun. Now we're going to put everything back together and then start using our epoxy sculpt to modify the clock. I want it to look very big and heavy and bulky, so I'm just adding a snake of clay around the edge of it, and then we'll go ahead and texture it later. And then I was careful not to trap the batteries inside. And after inserting my chain, I'm going to texture it with this piece of aluminum foil from earlier. And then here I am making sure I didn't permanently encase the batteries. Now let's start his head. Of course, it started as a ball of aluminum foil. I've added my clay on top of that, and I'm going to start shaping out the features, starting with the eyes. Now for his eyes, I want them to look like his eyelids on the top and the bottom are sort of stretched out, and you see that tissue around them, so I'm just making sure I drag it out enough to get that point across. Angor appears as an elderly man, plagued with feelings of panic, fear, dread, and uneasiness. He is restless and tense, and is easily startled. As he roams the mutant universe, he is completely lost in his own mind, plagued with thoughts of impending danger and doom. He is weak, tired, and his bloodshot, tired eyes never close. And then I really enjoyed putting all these wrinkles on Angor. I give him some very concerned looking forehead wrinkles, and we use our cone shaper tool to add a nice skin texture just by crisscrossing it on top of itself over and over to give it a nice realistic dimensional feel. Now I just want to go ahead and pop on his other ear, and then I do want him to have a chin, so I'm going to add one. I don't want his face to just fall off into nothing, so he's going to have a chin, but still no mouth. And I'm going to attach his head with some bacon bond, of course. And then I realized that it's easier to put the clay around his neck when his head is not attached, so I end up taking it off to do that neck, like so. And then we stick the head back on and blend it in. Now I really want to refine that base texture so that it's pleasing, and there's no little crumbly pieces of clay, so I'm using my cone shaper, and then I'm brushing it with some clay softener to, of course, remove fingerprints and smooth everything out, get it all nice and blended, and it ends up looking like this weird alien skin thing, which is kind of cool. I did contemplate leaving him this color, but we end up going with something else for a good reason. But here we go, just using that clay softener. I decided to add some boils and I guess warts to his back and getting those on. And this was very difficult to do after brushing the surface with clay softener. Try to get all your sculpting done before you bust out the clay softener. Angor has no legs, but rather rises from the earth and is unable to pull away. The heaviness pulling on his body and being one with the ground symbolize the feeling of being buried alive and the inability for him to escape his feelings. Feeling the weight dragging him down, making it hard for him to travel. He is trapped by the constant force of the ground beneath him, leaving him extremely restless. And once Angor has been baked, it's time to paint. I'm going to paint him this color that's called French Vanilla from the Folk Art matte line. And I'm going to paint the entire sculpture this color just because at this point I wasn't sure of the colors I wanted to use and how I wanted to paint him. So I'm just going over all of this with the color I knew I wanted to use for his skin. And this is really why I like painting my sculptures, because I don't have to think of a color palette while I'm still sculpting. I can make all those decisions at the end. After a couple lovely coats of French Vanilla, I'm going in with my war paint dark brown wash and getting it into all the nooks and crannies, and then tapping off the excess with my fingertips. And once I got that wash all over everything, I'm going in with a very fine paintbrush to really get into those tiny little wrinkles. Now I'm going to paint the inside of the eyelids red. I don't want this to look like blood or like he's bleeding. I just want it to be like his eyelids are stretched out. And of course, the next step is to highlight everything with a nice white dry brushing. Just going around the entire piece and dabbing my round brush, or this is called a filbert brush, filbert tip brush, I believe, and I'm just swiping it on the surface, catching all those raised areas. Angor has no mouth, adding to his tension, being unable to vocalize his thoughts and speak to those around him. If you are present, you will notice Angor trembling and sometimes weeping. It may be your first instinct to comfort him, but he wants nothing to do with you. He roams the mutant universe far and wide, longing for relief that never comes. If in some instance you are to try and speak to Angor, he is known to fall into a coma due to the stress your presence and interaction has caused him. He is best left alone. Now for his eyes, I'm just using that French Vanilla color again to paint the base of them, and then we'll go in and add some fun little veins and redness. Now I just want to pop on some piercing blue irises and then finish him off with the pupil, of course. And I'm going to go in and add those tiny little red veins with a very small paintbrush and make it look like this guy really needs some Visine. I mean, the poor guy doesn't blink. I think I got that point across. Now to finish off the eyes, I'm adding some Americana Triple Thick High Gloss Varnish. adding this to the eyeballs themselves and the insides of his eyelids. Now for the base, I decided that this is indeed going to be the ground of the Mutant Universe, so it's going to be a black gradient that fades off into the rest of his body. So I went in with some straight up black there and then added some water to create that nice ombre. Now to highlight the detail on the base even more, I'm going to dry brush some of that French vanilla color on the surface. Really catch those details and show off all the time that I spent making them. Now sparingly, I'm going to dry brush a little bit of red violet. I did not use that color shift purple, that would have been weird. And then I'm going to dry brush a little bit of green and a little bit of blue. Really give this some dimension. Now I just want to finish him off with a little bit more of that wash. Really show off his details, and then we can move on to the clock. Angor drags with him a huge, heavy clock which symbolizes urgency and time running out. The clock is attached to a thick chain that symbolizes the inability to escape time. He is unable to let go of the clock and be free. Excessive worry, intrusive thoughts, and fatigue are a part of Angor's daily existence. And I really had a blast dirtying up this clock. I don't know what it is about making new things look old and dingy, but I really enjoy it. I need to find an excuse to do this in my next video now. But yeah, we're just going around the edges, making it look like it has naturally decayed. I don't just want to slap brown paint all over the place. It's got to have a rhyme and a reason, even if it is random, if that makes any sense at all. And here's my super intricate way of painting those chains, just dabbing them like crazy until they are completely covered. Now I just want to dry brush some metallic copper on the surface and then add some, I believe these are called like calcium deposits or drips, and it's just white paint that I'm adding to the surface in these straight lines, and then just sort of going crazy with it as I get more comfortable. Angor is a symbolic manifestation of severe anxiety disorders that interfere with one's daily activities. And that is the story of Angor the Wanderer. After attaching the clock to his hands, let's touch up a couple things and say it with me. And he's done! Angor the Wanderer is complete. Let me know what you think of him in the comments. Now, developing this character and being a sufferer of anxiety daily, but that's a story for another time, I really wanted to capture everything that anxiety is about. It makes you feel terrible. It's supposed to be something that keeps you motivated, like stress, but at the same time, if you have too much of it, it can really weigh you down, and I really wanted to depict that in this sculpture, and I think I was successful, so let me know again what you think of him in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Don't forget to stop into MiPops in Shelby Township, Michigan if you're in the area to see the ice cream man Batman and the Photographer through the end of July. Grab some Mutant Universe trading cards before they're gone, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.